Welcome to HFY Chronicles. At the sum of 1,000 subscribers, I'll post a special series just for you. Subscribe now. The vastness of space had never felt so suffocating. As the emergency lights pulsed crimson through the corridors of Horsehead Station, 10-year-old Milo Jenkins clutched his stuffed dinosaur tighter to his chest, listening to the distant sounds of shouting and the metallic echo of something heavy moving through the station's ventilation system. His aunt Elara had told him to stay put, that the adults would handle whatever had gotten loose on the station. But Milo knew better. He'd seen the thing that took his best friend Zach. He'd seen its 5 glittering eyes, and the way it moved, like liquid shadow with too many legs. And he knew, with the certainty that only children possess, that the adults had no idea what they were dealing with. Horsehead Station hung in the void at the edge of the nebula, a sprawling testament to human ingenuity and stubbornness. For generations, it had served as a vital trading post and refueling station for ships traversing the outer reaches of colonized space. The station's circular hub connected to 8 massive spokes, each housing different sectors: residential, commercial, agricultural, industrial, medical, research, entertainment, and docking. At its busiest, Horsehead housed nearly 15,000 souls from a dozen species, though humans remained the dominant population. Commander Elara Jenkins had been in charge of station security for nearly a decade. She'd handled smugglers, bar fights, the occasional diplomatic incident, and even a small radiation leak in the engineering sector. But nothing had prepared her for the message that came through her comm unit at 300 hours, 3 days ago. "Commander, we've got a situation in Residential Sector C. Some kind of creature, 2 casualties already. It's not like anything we've seen before." By the time Elara arrived, the creature had disappeared into the ventilation system, leaving behind only bloody smears and the horrified expressions of witnesses who couldn't quite articulate what they'd seen. One of the victims had been a child, 8-year-old Zach Mercer, who'd been playing hide-and-seek in the corridor when the thing dropped from an overhead vent. The station's xenobiologist, Dr. Ravi Patel, had been called immediately. His face had gone ashen when the witnesses described the creature. "If I didn't know better," he'd whispered to Elara, "I'd say they're describing a Zuvat. But that's impossible. No human station has ever survived a Zuvat infestation." "What the hell is a Zuvat?" Elara had demanded. "A predatory species from the Cygnus system. Think of a cross between a spider and a parasitic worm, but with intelligence and a regenerative capability that makes it nearly indestructible. The Galactic Council classifies them as a Class A extinction threat. Standard protocol is immediate evacuation and quarantine." Elara had scoffed at that. "We're not evacuating 15,000 people because of one alien bug. We're going to kill it." Dr. Patel had looked at her with a mixture of pity and fear. "Commander, you don't understand. You can't kill a Zuvat. The Brakak tried. They lost an entire colony world. The Faraxi lost 3 space stations before they established the evacuation protocols." But Elara Jenkins came from a long line of stubborn problem solvers. Her grandfather had been among the first colonists on Mars, her mother had pioneered the terraforming techniques used on Europa, and Elara herself had survived the Titan mining disaster by improvising an oxygen recycler from spare parts. The Jenkins family didn't evacuate, they adapted and overcame. "Get me everything you have on these Zuvats," she'd ordered. "Biological weaknesses, behavioral patterns, anything. And put together a hunting party. We're going to need volunteers." That had been 3 days ago. Since then, the creature had claimed 3 more lives, including Elara's second-in-command, Marcus Chen, who'd cornered it in a storage bay only to discover that standard-issue blasters did little more than annoy the thing. The Zuvat had torn through his tactical armor like it was tissue paper. Now, as Elara studied the station schematics in the emergency command center they'd set up in the mess hall, she couldn't help but wonder if Dr. Patel had been right. Maybe evacuation was the only option. But evacuation meant abandoning Horsehead, possibly for years. It meant uprooting families, disrupting trade routes, and admitting defeat. And Elara Jenkins had never been good at admitting defeat. "Commander," Dr. Patel's voice broke through her thoughts. "I've been analyzing the pattern of attacks. There's something interesting here." He pulled up a holographic display of the station, with red markers indicating each attack site. "The Zuvat is hunting, but not randomly. It's establishing territory. And look at the timing. The attacks are getting closer together. It's not just killing for food, it's preparing. Preparing for what? Ilara asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Reproduction. Zuvats are hermaphroditic. Once they've secured enough resources, in this case, food, they self-fertilize and lay eggs, hundreds of them. The mess hall fell silent as everyone processed this information. How long do we have? Ilara finally asked. Based on known Zuvat biology, maybe 48 hours before it starts laying eggs. Once that happens, he didn't need to finish the sentence. Once the Zuvat reproduced, the station was lost. Then we have 48 hours to kill it, Ilara said firmly. Commander, I've told you. I heard you, Doctor, but with all due respect to the Brack and the Phyraxi, they're not human, and we have one advantage they don't. What's that? Ilara smiled grimly. We're really, really good at killing things. The plan came together over the next few hours. The station would be divided into sectors, with each sector sealed off and systematically searched by armed teams. The Zuvat might be able to regenerate from a single blaster shot, but what about sustained fire? What about different types of weapons? They had mining lasers, industrial acids, even a few experimental weapons in the research sector. Something had to work. The first team to encounter the Zuvat was in Agricultural Sector D. They hit it with everything they had: blasters, a mining laser, even a makeshift flamethrower. The creature screamed, a high, keening sound that made everyone's skin crawl, and retreated into the ventilation system, leaving behind a trail of its strange, iridescent blood. It's hurt, reported team leader Javier Rodriguez. Not dead, but definitely hurt. And it's running. I think it's afraid. That was the breakthrough they needed. The Zuvat might be nearly indestructible, but it could feel pain. It could be afraid. And if it could be afraid, it could be hunted. For the next 36 hours, the station became a war zone. The Zuvat was tracked through the ventilation system, flushed out with sonic pulses, and hit with everything the humans could throw at it. Each time, it regenerated, but each time, the regeneration took longer. It was getting tired. It was running out of energy. And then came the moment that would later become station legend. The Zuvat, cornered in a maintenance corridor, faced off against a team led by Ilara herself. They'd hit it 6 times already, and it was visibly weakening, its movements slower, its regeneration incomplete, but it was still dangerous, perhaps more so now that it was desperate. As the team prepared for another assault, a small figure darted from behind them, 6-year-old Lily Rodriguez, who had slipped away from the safe zone to find her father. Before anyone could stop her, she'd picked up a fallen blaster and fired at the creature. The shot wasn't particularly powerful, but it hit the Zuvat in one of its 5 eyes. The creature recoiled, making that terrible keening sound again, but this time there was something different about it, a note of surprise, perhaps even respect. It knows, Dr. Patel whispered, watching through the camera feed. It understands that even the children here are a threat. That was the turning point. The Zuvat began to retreat more systematically, no longer just running, but trying to find a way off the station, but there was nowhere to go. Every escape route was blocked, every potential hiding place systematically searched. Finally, 42 hours after the hunt began, the Zuvat was cornered in a storage bay in the industrial sector. It was severely weakened, its regenerative abilities almost exhausted. And standing before it, holding a blaster that seemed too big for his small hands, was Milo Jenkins. "This is for Zach," the boy said and fired. The shot wasn't fatal. No single shot could be, but it was the final straw. The Zuvat collapsed, its many legs folding beneath it, and looked up at the boy with its remaining eyes. It made a sound then, not the terrible scream they'd all come to dread, but something softer, almost a whimper. "Can I keep her, Aunt Ilara?" Milo asked, lowering his blaster. The question broke the tension, and several of the adults laughed nervously, but Dr. Patel was already approaching the creature cautiously, scanner in hand. "It's still alive, but completely exhausted," he reported. "Its regenerative capabilities are temporarily depleted. If we're going to study it, now's the time." And study it they did. Over the next few weeks, Dr. Patel and his team made discoveries that would revolutionize several fields of science. The Zuvat's venom, it turned out, contained compounds with remarkable medical properties: tissue regeneration, pain suppression, even potential anti-aging effects, and the creature itself, once properly contained and understood, proved to be not just a mindless killer, but a complex organism with problem-solving abilities and a form of intelligence that defied easy classification. Word of Horsehead Station's triumph spread quickly through the galaxy. Humans, it seemed, had done what no other species had managed. They'd not only survived a Zuvat infestation, but had turned it into a scientific breakthrough. Which is how, 3 months later, Commander Ilara Jenkins found herself sitting in a bar on Centauri Prime, listening to 3 aliens discuss the Horsehead incident, without realizing that the human at the next table was not just from Horsehead, but had been at the center of the whole affair. The Firaxi took another sip and lowered his voice, ready to dish the latest gossip. His 2 Dinto friends leaned in. I heard a Zuvat got onto the human station at Horsehead Reef. Scrap, I liked that station. The larger of the 2 Dinto flapped his ears downward in perfunctory sadness at someone else's loss. Yeah, rerouting is going to cost a crapload of credits. Ilara looked over at the 3 with a puzzled expression. They looked back at her, both Dinto moving their ears into a gesture of commiseration. Did you know anyone there? At Horsehead? Yeah, Horsehead's my home port. The Firaxi winced. Oh, sorry, bud. Can I buy you a drink? I wouldn't turn down a drink if you let me get the next round. She switched tables and gestured to the waitress to move her open tab with her. What are y'all talking about? The Zuvat. Oh, that spider-worm thing. Yeah, it was a pain. A pain? Oh yeah, lost a couple guys before we figured it out. A couple? The Firaxi's eyes went wide, and the Dento's ears flared in surprise. They glanced at each other, then back to the human. 2 casualties. Generally, station evacuation costs dozens of lives. Well, it did take us a few days to catch the critter. Catch, said the large Dinto. A Zuvat, said the small Dinto. Ilara looked at them. Well, you can't just leave them loose in the ductwork, can you? Them things kill people. What do y'all do? The 2 Dinto dipped their ears toward the Firaxi, who answered. We evacuate the station until they starve. Ilara stared. That could take months. The Firaxi flexed his ears no and tossed back his drink. Doblix Velda, out near the Orion Nebula, has been uninhabited for 16 years. Ilara shook her head disbelievingly. That's just wrong. Why would... Once it's loose in the station, it will travel through the ducts. It will come out any place in the station. It will kill whoever it wants and breed. Ilara looked on in non-comprehension. Then her eyes widened and she looked down. While she considered, she took a moment to gesture to the waitress for another round. So you have to evacuate, the Firaxi continued. Get the people to safety. Make sure it doesn't get off that section and no eggs travel in anyone's belongings. Several times, Ilara looked like she was going to say something but stopped herself. Finally, she got a few words out. A word would... Why would what? You can't kill those things. Of course you can. They're just animals. They can take full-on blaster shots and regenerate. Well, sure, if you let them. The Firaxi set down his drink with a thud. Let them? Yeah, why would you do that? How do you not? You trap them in one section, give everybody a gun, and don't let them rest. I think it only took 7 shots before the thing just gave up running. Running, said the large Dinto. A Zuvat, said the small Dinto. Yeah, regeneration takes food and time. After about the 3rd shot, it knew what for, made the most pitiful squealing noises as it scrambled through the ducts. Never heard anything so pathetic in my life. Pathetic, said the large Dinto. Arubat, said the small Dinto. Ilara looked back and forth between the Dintos. So, is that some kind of comedy routine? Because it does sound funny. Wait. You heard it? Sure, like I said, home base, everybody was there. The larger Dinty looked at her seriously. You killed a Zuvat. Hell no, we caught it. She paused for a moment, but the Dintos said nothing. The eggheads think its venom is going to be a miracle drug, or maybe a liqueur. They're still hashing that out. Turns out milking them is pretty easy. Milking, said the large Dinto. A Zuvat, said the small Dinto. Ilara nodded. The Firaxi glared at her, then fed it all back, voice going more and more tense with each phrase. So, let me get this straight. A Zuvat got onto your station. You knew nothing about it. A human died. Some first human shot it with a blaster and still died. So you threw more men with blasters at it until it finally got exhausted of killing people and it gave up? About like that. Not just men, though. Hell, a 6-year-old girl hit it the 3rd time. That's when it figured out that it was screwed. The Firaxi looked down at his newly filled glass and glanced at the receding waitress. He was not nearly drunk enough to believe this. And this is normal for humans? What? What's abnormal? The first person it killed was a kid. No damn way in hell it was going to get away with that. You don't mess with our kids. You have a formidable group response. Damn right, but that's not the only reason not to mess with our kids, she grinned. The last shot went to my 10-year-old nephew. The 3 were speechless. Yeah, the spider-worm thing just collapsed, looked up at him with those 5 big old eyes, and whimpered. Ilara looked at the 2 dintos. Go ahead, say it. Whimpered, said the large dinto, but his heart wasn't in it. Zuvat, said the small dinto, devoid of expression. Ilara smiled proudly and finished her glass. Yup. It took everything I had to tell him no, too, when he asked if he could keep her. As the aliens sat in stunned silence, Ilara signaled for another round. She didn't tell them about the nightmares Milo still had, or about the memorial service for those who hadn't survived, or about the heated debates among the station's leadership about what to do with their captured Zuvat. She didn't mention Dr. Patel's growing concern that the creature might be more sentient than they'd initially believed, or the ethical questions that raised. Those were human problems, to be solved in human ways. For now it was enough that Horsehead Station still stood, that its people had faced the impossible and prevailed, and that somewhere in the galaxy word was spreading. Humans don't evacuate. Humans adapt. Humans overcome. And above all, humans protect their own, even if it means teaching a Zuvat to whimper. As the screen fades to black, a warm, inviting voice speaks over gentle background music. If you enjoyed this tale of human ingenuity and alien encounters, don't let the story end here. Hit that like button to help others discover Commander Ilara's triumph at Horsehead Station. Leave a comment sharing what you think makes humans uniquely resilient in the face of cosmic threats. Subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories from across the galaxy. And don't forget to turn on that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when our next adventure begins. Until then, remember what the aliens learned today. Never underestimate humanity's determination, especially when it comes to protecting our own. See you among the stars.